So we are going into a Aliens Vasquez deep dive. Some of you know about the book and some of you are new. You just kind of stumbled upon my post. And we've got Aliens Earth starting. We've got Predator Badlands. I've got my Vasquez shirt on. And yeah, let me let you in on some of it. So if we like this video, I will do a part 2 about how I actually got the gig and what happened after the book came out. But for now, so Vasquez, we all know how iconic she is. We've seen the film. We also, no spoilers, we know she dies. She gets blown to bits. So the first thing I was told was you can't bring her back. And anything that was written about her in the past or in the film, you can't change either. So I said, okay. And I was able to then come up with her backstory as if she was a real person, as if I was writing somebody's biography. And that's what I wanted to do. And as a Mexican-American woman, I wanted to show that culturally, show that in her vulnerability as a female, and in her relationships, because there was a lot of speculation about her sexuality because of the way she looked and her body. And I actually talk about that in the book, like why she looks the way she does. But, you know, there are a lot of like little things I put in there to foreshadow her going to this planet. So, for example, and I love talking about this one because it's so vivid in my mind. Every Easter, there's something called cascarones, which are eggs. So you crack your eggs when you're like making your breakfast or whatever, and you open it. So just the top's opening, you rinse them out, and we keep them back into the egg container. And then you dye them. You remember those Paz little dye kits? Yeah, those. Fill them with confetti. The smaller, the better. I'd cut tissue paper myself. And then you glue a piece of tissue paper on the top. And then you'd run around and crack them on people's heads. You make a mess. Confetti is found all over the house for like months. So I showed her as a kid hunting and finding people to like smash these eggs with, and her loving this ritual and the eggs to foreshadow the eggs she would find later, but also her naturally kind of being a bit of a tomboy and enjoying running around and building forts, because like me, I come from a military family, and there's a lot of people of color in the US who are military families, like Latinos. There's so many that have a history of Air Force, Army, you know it, Marines. My uncle was a Marine. My uncle was an amazing man. He's passed now. And I'm so glad that I could kind of honor him in some way. And he always read my books, but that's another story about my Marine uncle. So I have Marine, Army, and Air Force in my family. So for me, writing a book about this Latino family who has a history of military, I wanted to address the fact that she was a gang member in for murder and a Chicana in East LA. You know, I had to say, right, we've got to dig a bit deeper and not just stay surface level on what she, you know, this kind of little stereotypical background, right? And so I have it, because it is set in the future, I show her on Earth. I show her family, and there is, you know, there's widespread panic, and her parents become really ill. You know, I had the pandemic in mind, but I couldn't explicitly talk about a pandemic. And she's essentially kind of left to her own devices at a young age, and she's grieving, and she is just looking for love. She's looking for acceptance, and she finds that with her friends, and just kind of running around. Her older sister is eventually in rehab, and it eventually looks after her children. But their family just has a series of events that lead her to this point. And I wanted to show racial profiling. I wanted to show, you know, being at the wrong place at the wrong time and being locked up. And you'll see that. You'll see her working out in the gym. What else is she going to do? Confronting bullies, standing up for herself. And we see that in the film, how she is very vocal. She's not afraid. She'll tell you, and she develops that. I also show her in relationships with both female and male. I wanted her to be bisexual, and also because I needed to carry on her legacy. She has 2 children. So that's how I solved that problem. Now, I'm not going to talk too much more about it because I want you to read the book, and I'd love to write another one. I mean, that's one of my goals, and Predator is like my dream IP book to write. But yeah, so those are some of the things that you can expect and kind of my motivation. Now, I remember getting a review that said, "Oh my God, this music that's referenced, it's old. How can they listen to that in the future?" And I just laughed, because I'm like, we don't still listen to Beethoven. We don't still listen to Kiss. We don't listen to Buddy Holly. So music transcends time. Music is about emotion. Music is a storyteller. So you're going to get a lot of musical references as well. Whether you like them or not, I mean, that's not my business. But, again, I wanted to kind of capture, even though it's in the future, capture this feeling, this emotion, her identity. And some of the music in there kind of is how I did that. And again, how I grow up in South Texas, in a pretty much predominantly Latino and immigrant neighborhood, and going to those schools. That was definitely part of the evolution of her story, her background, and her love for family. And as you'll see, that love for family extends beyond her death. And that's what I wanted to do. When I first wrote it part 2, we'll talk about how I got the book. And yeah, we'll talk more about that. But anyway, grab this book. I loved it. I would love to write another one. And hey, comment if, what your experience is with Vasquez, if you read the book. I want to hear what you have to say.